Well, it's mid-July with temperatures in the mid-90s, and I've decided to come out here and do a little homework. You know, it's funny, deer season never really seems to end. Just before the opener last year, I saw two nice bucks feeding in a field about 200 yards in that direction. I hunted them on several occasions and never laid eyes on them. So I moved on. When turkey season rolled around this past spring, I was out here in the same general area on a slow morning when I knew I couldn't even buy a gobble. So I started following deer trails back into the woods. And lo and behold, I found a main trail that comes back and crosses a creek just over here. Pretty major crossing, and while the water has dried up in the creek at this point in time, there are heavy tracks crossing in that same spot I found in the spring. So what I've done is I've found a nice setup just past that creek. Found a nice tree about 23 yards off the main trail. We're going to come back in here this year and see if those bucks are still around. Now the odds of that are iffy. This is a pretty heavily hunted piece of public property. But then again, those big bucks didn't get big on this track by getting shot. I began my scouting efforts for the 2010 season by seeking out food sources that I believed my quarry may use, as well as cover that I thought they might bed in. Other sign would also help lead me to selecting trails that link these areas. From there, it was simply a matter of picking a tree within a reasonable range of these trails. After settling on one spot, it was time to move on to look for the next. So I would have various options available, regardless of which way the winds decided to blow, when I had time to get into the field this coming fall. Had a little good fortune while I was poking around on that other oak flat. I jumped 3 bucks, and they were in velvet. One of them looked to be fairly decent. It looked good enough I know I want to get another look at him with the bow in my hand. Now they ran down off that flat into a creek bottom, so I gave them a little while and followed. And crossing the creek on the other side is a hillside with more oak trees on it. Now this tree had 4 or 5 deer trails. They come down off an agricultural field about 50 yards up the hill. But when you got to the bottom of the hill, all those trails squeezed together and became one main trail. At a choke point right behind me here that leads into a thick, swampy area where that creek empties out. I found this tree 24 yards from that choke point. I've marked it with a few glow tacks so I can find it in the dark, and I cannot wait to get back here and climb this tree once the season's open. Things like this can really clue you as to whether you've got a good spot or not. As I was leaving that tree I set up, I was moving along the edge of the overgrown swamp, and I came across this. What appears to be a complete skeleton, backbone, skull, rack, and all, of a small 5-point buck. Now that leads me to believe that this area is not hunted frequently and also acts as escape cover for the deer when it is hunted. The time had finally arrived for me to grab the tree stand, bow, and head into the field. The action was great right from the start, and I had numerous encounters with white-tailed deer. Some of these encounters were very close indeed. On one hunt, I encountered an old public land matriarch doe who had seen many tricks and traveled through the woods looking up in trees for danger. These deer were not the deer I sought, however. Be sure not to miss any of the follow-up episodes to the quest for public land Pope and Young. Visit my website, www.camochairproductions.com, to see all the episodes as soon as they air.